In this special crossover episode of Geographical Thinking, we shine a spotlight on our sibling podcast, Spatial Report. We sit down with the hosts, Mark Ho and Maggie Samson, to uncover what it's like to be at the helm of this dynamic series, exploring the latest in GIS and beyond. As a bonus, we'll dive into the critical topic of Next Generation 911 by playing their most recent episode of Spatial Report, where the future of emergency response technology takes center stage. Join us for a look inside at the people, the passion, and the stories that make Spatial Report a must-listen for the GIS community. Welcome back to Geographical Thinking. I'm Michelle Brake, and I'll be your guide as we explore ideas, stories, and conversations through the lens of geography. Joining me today are the hosts of Esri Canada's other podcast, Spatial Report, Mark Ho and Maggie Samson. Thank you, Mark and Maggie, for joining me today.
Yo, thanks for having us.
Yeah, and because you guys know each other so well, and I know we've all worked together, but I want you to introduce each other. Normally I do the intros, but you guys have got this. You host your own podcast, so whoever wants to go first, introduce your co-host.
Sure, why don't I kick this off? Because, I like to refer to Maggie, my partner in crime, as M. Swizzle. I didn't know if you knew that or not.
I did not. I also did not know.
Okay. So here's a couple of things that I've learned working with Maggie over the last couple of years. First of all, she is a major CFL fan, especially the Hamilton Tiger Cats, which are they're having their struggles this year, but that's okay. She's still out there.
It's okay.
It's all right. And she's also a very creative person. She sings, but she's also started pottery, which I'm very excited about. I can't wait to get that ashtray in the, in the mail. And the most important thing I've really understood about Maggie is that she is super competitive, ultra competitive. She likes to kill me on these trivia games that we have on our podcast. She goes for the jugular, and it hurts. It hurts my soul. It hurts my spirit. So Maggie, you are a spirit breaker.
Oh, that's lovely.
As somebody who has lost to Maggie, I can understand the feelings there, Mark.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
I always say, why play if you can't win, Mark? Why play if you can't win? All right, it's all about it. I want to win every time.
Wow, that's some hardcore
I'm afraid
to live by there. I guess with that, let's give the Maggie the floor, since apparently she beats all of us at trivia. Maggie, tell us about Mark.
I wish I did always beat everyone at trivia, but Mark really is someone everyone always says doesn't need an introduction, but really he doesn't, because he's been around here at Esri Canada or Esri in the Esri community for a very long time. You've probably seen him on stage. Hey, thanks. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. You're a legend around here. I think it was 25 years within the Esri community. It's pretty impressive. Congratulations, Mark. But you might have also seen him out and about around Canada or the United States, because he's visited every single province and territory. So he's really traveling around doing it all. You never miss Mark. On the way there, he's probably grabbing a barf bag out of the plane because he collects those. So if you're ever feeling sick at Mark's place, he's got you covered. Don't worry. He's not going to have a problem. And I think you're pretty much a winner in your own right, Mark, because you have been in the biggest stage of winning there can be on Price is Right, famously. Caught you on the big screen. So pretty exciting.
Okay. Well, Mark, is that anywhere that we can find? Is it up on YouTube? How recent was this win? Can we share it?
It's been many, many years ago. This is the Bob Barker era. And, maybe in the show notes, I could provide, a link to the YouTube.
Ooh, okay.
It's out there somewhere.
We'll get those views up.
Yes, that's it.
And with the fun stuff started, we've gotten to hear a little bit about what Mark and Maggie have. As their chemistry clearly is what has people coming back for their podcast. They're fun. They're lively. Let's get down to the hard facts, though. I'm wondering, for those that aren't aware, can you tell us about the Spatial Report podcast and what it focuses on?
Sure. The Spatial Report is a podcast that is not afraid to say the word ArcGIS. It was kind of a genesis of the pandemic. People were at home and we couldn't do the user conferences. So we wanted to be able to share technical information in a different way beyond sort of the webinars that we've done in the past and the blogs, etc. So just another avenue to share technical information. And the nice thing about Spatial Report is that we can be current. So if there's a new release, we can focus some time on that. Or if there's an important topic that's coming up, we can devote an interview towards that as well. So we really wanted to have a fun and engaging way to be able to talk about ArcGIS and technical information. And I picked the perfect partner in Maggie to be able to work together and be able to share that information with our users.
Okay, and I'm wondering, how do you guys find the balance between making content accessible to both GIS professionals and maybe even those that are less familiar with the field?
I think just the fact that it's a podcast sort of lends itself in that way. We do expect our listeners usually to have some understanding of GIS. It is a technical podcast about GIS, so you probably want to know like what a buffer is or how to read a map are, maybe the bare minimum requirements to listening. But because we don't have visual aids, we're not opening up the software and getting into the nitty-gritty of the tools. It's really just more about understanding on a conversational level what's new, what's happening, and why these things are worth taking a deeper dive into on your own. So those GIS professionals may know some of the stuff we talk about, but introducing them to something new, and people who aren't as familiar with the software, just getting the basic information so that they can start exploration to go further on their own journey.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a great place to be, kind of in the mid ground. And obviously, I think starting with buffers sounds like a great place to get in at the ground level. I'm wondering, can you share a memorable moment or a favorite episode from your time on Spatial Report?
Yeah, I could start. I mean, I love sharing and talking about our technology. So when we did the All GeoGeek episode last year, where we had all of our GeoGeeks and all of our and by the way, the GeoGeeks are sort of the our panel of experts that come back on the regular and talk about their core products. So when we brought all of these GeoGeeks together to talk about what's new in Pro and in online, in our mobile apps and in enterprise, it just encapsulates all of the cool and exciting things that we're doing, and I kind of vibe towards those types of podcasts.
That was a great episode, but I think my favorite so far, I mean, they're all a lot of fun in their own way to do, but I really liked the episode that we did about ArcGIS Solutions, All Problems Have Solutions, with Lindsay Thomas from Esri Inc. I'm a big ArcGIS Solutions fan, so I think it's nice to get to see those in action, and also just meeting her and talking with her. She's a big advocate for the software, a really enjoyable person to hang out with, and then I actually got to meet her in person at the UC. So being able to connect with people across outside of our Esri Canada little community, it was really a great experience to get to see her in person and chat about the software and chat about the podcast. So I definitely recommend giving that one a listen.
Awesome. I think those are two great episodes for people to go back and check out if they haven't already. But now, thinking of the future, if you could collaborate with anyone or bring in any guests for Spatial Report, who would it be and why? Let's go over to Maggie first this time.
All right. I might not have taken this when I was thinking about this question ahead of time, the right direction, because I'm thinking about the past. But I was thinking more of like a dead or alive situation.
Okay.
So I think that I would want to talk to a Canadian legend and the father of GIS, Roger Tomlinson, because,
Ooh.
he created what is GIS, what is everything that we talk about every day at work and in the podcast. So I think he would be a really interesting person to get some insights from. But of course, that would be time machine dream guest situation.
Okay, so it sounds like the project for the rest of the year is work on a time machine, get
Absolutely.
Roger Tomlinson for as the next guest. Got it. Okay,
Yeah,
Mark,
you got to fire up that hot tub to make that work.
Exactly.
Well, I took the question a little bit more literally. I would love to invite maybe the executive team at Esri Inc. because I'm intrigued about how they make decisions. I'm really fascinated on how they prioritize what they want to work on and how they incorporate it in their software and how they are able to build it and support it. I'm really interested in sort of the background of how our software and our technology works. So that's who I would invite.
Okay, it sounds like maybe while we're working on the time machine, then we've got another great option to work towards. And I'm wondering, now that we've got future possible guests out of the way, are there any other specific technologies or trends that you want to see covered in future episodes?
Yeah, I can definitely think of one that I think is front of mind for everybody. And we do actually already have an episode on this, but taking it a little bit further, it's got to be GeoAI. It's a huge topic right now. Of course, it was really heavily covered at the user conference, but I think a lot of people are just sort of talking about AI in general. And with the AI assistants that they're adding to the tools, I think it's a new avenue that we can look at and talk about more. Like I said, we have an episode that's really more focused on deep learning and those types of AI tools, but the stuff that's coming down the road, I think as they release those new updates to the software, we're going to want to talk about those as well.
Yeah, I would concur, but just to throw a curveball in there, I'm also really intrigued about 3D and the evolution of 3D GIS. I mean, we always think of maps as 2D, but the reality is that we see the world in 3D. So how that continues to grow and evolve and expand is something that I'm intrigued with as well.
Okay, awesome. Again, more things to look forward to, hopefully in the future. Now, let's set the stage for the episode we're about to hear. Your recent episode focuses on Next Generation 911. Why is this important for listeners to understand this technological shift?
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic because I didn't know much about it. I mean, we all know that if there is an emergency in your house, you pick up your phone and you say your address. But of course, we all now have mobile devices and cell phones, and being able to leverage that location information on your device is something that we are moving towards. So the steps and the process of being able to get to that position is something that we focused on in the podcast.
Okay, awesome. Maggie, any other last thoughts that we want to give people before we launch into our episode?
I think Mark covered most of it, but yeah, it's just an interesting conversation about all the things that need to do before we can get to the point. You think, okay, my phone's sending location now. Why doesn't that work? But there's a lot of steps involved for municipalities and communities around the country to be able to get us to that point. And it's going to be a longer journey than people might expect. So it's interesting to hear about.
And with that, here's what you've been waiting for. Enjoy Spatial Report, and we'll see you on the other side.
Hi, I'm Maggie.
Hi, I'm Mark, and this is
Spatial Report.
Welcome to the Esri Canada podcast that connects our user community with the latest and coolest trends in the world of ArcGIS. On today's show,
the next generation of 911 is coming. We'll discuss how GIS will play a big role in advancing emergency response.
Then our field operations GeoGeek will tell us how to keep on mapping, even when you're disconnected.
And the battle for gold medal in GIS trivia continues with M versus M.
It's time to light the flame on another podcast, so let's start. Maggie Samson, it is August 2024. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Thriving in the middle of summer, having a great time. Couldn't be better. How about you?
I spent a lot of time watching the Olympics that just concluded. It was incredible. I love the Olympics for some dumb reason. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, the Olympics are great. I honestly prefer winter, but it's still pretty cool, the Summer Olympics. I watched a bit of it.
All right, so I have to ask this dumb question. If you could be in the Summer Olympics and get a gold medal in one sport, what would that be?
My chances are low across the board, I think. If I had to pick something, maybe something that not as many people do. So, like the gun shooting sports or shot put, something really obscure,
I like that.
Yeah. What about you?
I can see you with a pistol just shooting away. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Never shot a gun, but you know what? I could maybe do that. Probably not, though. What about you, Mark?
I was born to breakdance, so now that it's an Olympic sport,
yeah.
I am a natural breakdancer. You wouldn't believe the moves that I have.
I'm sure that's true. I sounds like something that you would be really good at. I'd love to see it one day.
I'd be terrible at that. No, race walking. That is the ultimate sport.
That looks hard. I honestly, all of them look hard. Props to the athletes out there. That couldn't be me. Looks pretty exciting though.
But you know what always gets the gold medal? What? Maps.
You're right. Maps do get the gold medal for sure. That was great, Mark. Thanks for that.
What a transition, eh?
That's expert work. I know what you want to know. What's making me mappy, right?
What is making you mappy, Maggie Samson?
There's a lot of things that are making me mappy. For sure, right now, I think it's something that I actually learned about at the Esri UC last month. Got to go there and see a lot of new things. I try to stay up to date with everything that's new, but I missed this one somehow. But one of the new things that they added recently, it's still in beta, but iNaturalist, which is like a global network of naturalists and biologists and who collect observations of different species. They've compiled all their data and they've made it available through the ArcGIS Living Atlas. So anyone who's working with ArcGIS Online or is able to access Living Atlas in their work can bring in this data and see observations that have over almost 500,000 species. I think it's 479,000 species that they've got in there, with millions of contributors adding data all the time. So it's really exciting to have this. You never really get this wealth of data that's just sort of free to use, but it's available through the Living Atlas. It is beta right now, but it's pretty exciting. I know that it's updated every month, so there's always new data coming in, and it is research grade. If you're worried about some of the animals, because it is any kind of animal people can see, and I know some species are protected or endangered, don't worry, those species locations are obscured, so it's not 100% accurate pinpoint on where they are. We do want to keep those species safe, but you can access it and use it in your maps and apps, and it's pretty great. I definitely recommend everyone takes a look at it and tries it out. But
All right.
What's going on with you? Yeah, I want to know what you're excited about, what you're mappy about now.
All right. Well, as you know, there has been a bunch of updates to a lot of our technology around the user conference, and that includes the ArcGIS Experience Builder. They had an update in June 2024. Mm-hmm. So the thing that caught my eye is that they've added 4 new widgets into the Experience Builder, and the first one is the measurement widget. So it allows you to measure distances and areas, and kind of your typical measure tool that you would expect in kind of a web app. The difference here is that you can actually preset what the default units are. The second widget is the feature report widget. And this is interesting for Survey 123 users because it allows you to generate really detailed reports in either a PDF format or a Word doc from records that are collected in Survey 123. So you have a feature layer of some results and you want to generate a report directly from that in Experience Builder, you can. So that's pretty cool too. The third one is Building Explorer. This is kind of a niche one, but if you do happen to have that building scene layer, you can now add that in and you can navigate through that building. So if you want to see particular levels or construction phases, you can now navigate that through this particular widget. And this is going to be more prevalent as digital twins become to be more popular. The final one to me is the really interesting one, and this is called My Location. It's currently in beta, but what is really interesting is that you can now use an Experience Builder web app to be able to collect points on your device. So it can collect your location and your movement. You'll be able to set the time intervals of this, and it will create points or lines of where your locations are. So I found that really interesting that a lot of the native apps that we have, like ArcGIS Field Maps, some of that functionality will become available through a web app, which is really interesting. And it's going to not only just record lat longs, it can also record things like your speed and what the time is, what your altitude is, etc. Just wanted to kind of highlight some of these cool new widgets that are available in Experience Builder.
Yeah, that's really cool. I had no idea about the My Location widget. It sounds like a really great alternative for sort of like the field tracking stuff that you can do with field maps if you're not that kind of a user. Very cool. Thanks for sharing, Mark. I had no idea. That's great to know. So we talked about what's making us mappy, but coming up next, we're going to go inside the Arc to learn more about the next generation of 911.
Imagine if you're in an emergency. You pick up the phone and you dial 911, but you have to describe where you are, and you're unable to leverage the modern location technology on your device. Well, that is about to change. The next generation of 911 is fast approaching, and GIS will play a pivotal role in its evolution.
To help us envision the future of emergency response and address management, we are joined by our colleague, Subhani Aruchelvam, who is a technical solutions specialist here at Esri Canada in the Ontario region, and she's working with Esri Canada's tools to advance NG 911 in this country. Subhani, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
We're so glad to have you here with us and to get us understanding what is happening in NG 911. So could you start us off by telling us what that is and what's going on, why people should know about this?
Yeah, so NG 911 is our new upgraded 911 system, and we've been in the E911 system for decades now. So the E911 system is when the emergency response system would like to locate you, they use a master index, which is just a table full of people's names and their addresses. So they are able to locate you by the landline that you call from, and then they associate that to an address. But now we are very much moved on to the cell phone systems, and we almost nobody uses the landline system. This is something that we need to upgrade to, and this will be the largest upgrade since the enhanced 911 that's been around for decades. So NG 911 is it is an digital internet protocol that will replace the analog 911 system, and it allows us for better location accuracy, quicker response time, and it'll support the new technology by using XY coordinates from our phone system.
I'm sure municipalities across the country need to begin to prepare for NG 911. So what do municipalities need to do to get started?
So municipalities, to get started, essentially, we need to create that foundation for our NG 911 system, which is our GIS layers. So in these GIS layers, what we need is the street addresses, so like the address points for all the houses and buildings that we have. And then we have our road center lines. We have our PSEP address point boundaries, which covers what areas will these emergency services know they will know to be responsible for. And then we have our provisioning boundaries, and these are just required items that municipalities need to have ready. And then they will then send it off to an aggregator such as TELUS or Bell, which will put all this data together and make sure it follows the NINA standards, which is created by emergency services to make sure there's a uniformity across all municipalities and everyone is following the same standards, which is what we call the NINA standards.
Seems like it would be pretty complicated for all these municipalities to get all this data together and send it off and make sure we have everything. So is there anything that Esri Canada is doing to help with that process?
Yeah, Esri Canada is very much involved in this huge upgrade, as it is very heavily GIS focused, and Esri Canada has been they created their GIS data model to help municipalities follow the NINA standards consistency that is required. And obviously, they have created the wonderful Address Manager application, which is a web-based solution that can be hosted by ArcGIS Online. And what it does is it allows you to update and publish those layers that you have put together. Once you've published it, you'll be able to add new addresses, but also the most important part is be consistent with your data, because everyone needs to have that uniform data to make sure this is consistent all around. So what it does is it'll make sure you have all the required fields, whether it's your postal code, your city, where it's where the data is coming from, when it was updated, and make sure that the data is up to date, which is very, very important to make sure we can ensure location accuracy, which is what the NG 911 focuses on. So we can make sure of that by putting it into the Address Manager web application that Esri Canada has created, and they will send this off to the aggregator when it is complete.
That makes total sense, and you're absolutely right. Having consistent, up-to-date data is critical for any type of emergency response. So it's glad that you are Esri Canada is working to standardize that. So you mentioned the Address Manager as an important piece of this. So why did Esri Canada make this Address Manager? What does it do?
So the Address Manager is a web application, and then so once they've pushed over those layers and have them ready into the application, you're able to add road center lines by using a tool to draw the road in. You'll be able to use 3D layers to create see the floors in buildings, because when you have an emergency in a building, you have to be able to accurately locate the person and to help them as well, right? So now in this 3D system, you can see all the units and floors from this application, which is amazing. Another great thing with the address manager is they have a life cycle system. So say that you have a new a developing area in your municipality. You want to make sure that the new addresses are kept up to date and sent to that aggregator, which this address manager will allow you to do seamlessly. So it has a lot of great tools to help our GIS users to complete this goal on time and send it to the aggregator.
Yeah, it seems like a really useful tool, and I understand that it's going to make the process a lot easier for municipalities trying to get that data aggregated. But I know even when things are made easy, there's still often some challenges, especially with getting started. So are there any challenges that you can see that municipalities might face and how they can work to overcome those?
So I can see one that maybe an issue is just getting started. I think having those layers and that data into your GIS system might be something that might be difficult for some, as some municipalities might not have a GIS administrator. They might not even have these layers already set in stone. That might be an obstacle that they need to come to collect this data. And Esri Canada is here to help, of course, and we want to make sure that everyone is able to reach the deadline to make this a seamless transition, as it is a huge upgrade. And it won't happen overnight. Obviously, the old system and the new system will work side by side until we are fully ready. But there will be a couple obstacles that we will need to surpass.
Wow, this is a really good overview of what's going to be happening in the next few years in NG911. So we really appreciate your time in giving us that sneak peek of what's about to happen. But before we let you go, we always like to ask our guests 3 takeaways from our discussion. So what are 3 things our audience needs to remember about NG911?
So some key takeaways is the first one is that NG911 will help us make sure we use the right resources at the right time. So opening this new system with open hands and just, getting to know how the process works is a key takeaway, I believe, the first one. The second one is understanding that this shift won't happen over time. Like I said before, it will take some time. The old system and new system will work side by side to make sure that we are ready for NG911. And the last key takeaway is being educated on this new system. How can we be ready for an emergency, and how can we use our tools to the advantage? For example, we want to know that we can use text messages, send pictures, send video calls from our phones, and send any sort of voice recordings. So we want to know all the tools that we have and be prepared for any emergency to help the emergency respond to us, get to us as quickly as possible, and dispatch the right people to us.
Wow, Sabani, thank you so much for providing us this wonderful introduction to Next Generation 911. We really appreciate your time, and thanks for joining us on the pod.
Yeah, of course. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, guys.
That was Sabani Aruchavem. She is a technical solution specialist with the Ontario region at Esri Canada, and she called us in from Ajax, Ontario.
After this short break, it's time to take an offline field trip with our Field Operations GeoGeek.
From navigating everyday obstacles to tackling the most pressing issues facing our world today, tune in to Geographical Thinking to discover how geospatial solutions can help solve problems and drive positive change. My name is Michelle Brake, and I'll be your guide as we explore stories, ideas, and conversations through the lens of geography. Listen and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform.
It's now time for the GeoGeeks, our regular segment where we bring in a subject matter expert to tell us what's noteworthy in one of our core ArcGIS products.
And that means it is the triumphant return of Sue and Yeti. She is our resident GeoGeek on all things field operations, and I'm pretty sure she just got back from a vacation up in the forest in the north. So Sue,
right.
Welcome back to the pod.
Well, thank you for having me, Mark and Maggie. Always happy to be here.
Indeed, and I'm sure on your vacation you had your field apps or field maps app roaming
did.
around with you all the time?
I was canoeing around with field maps, and I'm going to be backpacking with field maps this weekend. So,
right, and that probably leads to our discussion today because I'm sure they don't have great internet access up in the north. So we're going to talk a bit about how you could use ArcGIS field maps offline. So maybe to begin, explain what the concept of that is and what are some primary use cases or scenarios for offline use.
Sure. So Field Maps is a map-based app for field data collection as well as read-only exploration. And by default, it works in a connected environment because you're working with a web map and web layers. So this means it requires either a cellular signal or a Wi-Fi signal. And for many of our users, this works really well because you're usually in a more urban environment, or even in some rural environments, we all have some kind of cellular coverage. But as you mentioned, when you're kind of more in a remote location, such as northern parts of our provinces and territories, you may have nothing. You may have no Wi-Fi, no cellular. And this is typical for a lot of our resource-based users. So example, in forestry or mining or other resource extraction or conservation industries, they can't work with web maps and layers. So this is affecting a lot of our key users because they use the field maps to manage all their assets and know where their employees are in the field. So for this reason, we have specific tools and workflows in field maps that allow for preparing your maps and data before you go offline, and steps for the mobile user that they need to complete so they can work once they become disconnected.
So what are the steps that people would need to do to work offline? Because I know it's definitely useful, but how do you even get started with that?
Yeah, well, it's not automatic. So there's a few things you need to do. There's a web component of Field Maps. It's called Field Maps Designer, and you access it from your ArcGIS organization, whether that's ArcGIS or Online or ArcGIS Enterprise. And typically, this might be a GIS analyst or a GIS coordinator who is preparing the maps and data for the mobile worker. And in Field Maps, there's an option to turn offline on. And what happens when you do this is Field Maps will check your map. It will check all the content, your layers, whether they're editing layers or only reference. It will check your tables and your base maps and make sure that they're enabled for offline. And if you're not for anything, you will get a little red X and it will tell you what is the error. And you need to fix that before you can take that map and the content offline. And things can happen like you don't have sync enabled for your layer, or you have an unsupported layer type or a duplicate layer. Even for your base maps, ArcGIS Online base maps are supported automatically. But if you're using your own base map or working with ArcGIS Enterprise, there might be some extra steps. So you would need to first fix those. And then once you have your map and content offline enabled, then you have a choice of 3 actually different workflows you can enable for offline. And you can use any one of these, or you can use all of them in different combinations. So the first way that we call is the pre-planned area offline workflow. And again, you're using Field Maps Designer. You have some tools to sketch an area, and it can be a rectangle or an irregular area on the map. And then it will package together everything in that area. And once you share the map, that area is available for the mobile users in the app to download. So that's called the pre-planned workflow. And where I see this used is if people have typical service areas or work areas that they know their crew always work in. And another nice feature of this is they can check on an option to refresh that map package anywhere from daily to weekly, so that if you're getting a lot of edits coming in and out, you want to make sure that you're repackaging all the new data, and the mobile workers will actually get a little message saying there's a new version of this offline map available. The second area is what's called the ad hoc workflow, and this is always available to the mobile user. So when they're in Field Maps, they are able to say, for this web map, I'm going to take it offline. They're going to define their own area. And in the same way, the maps, the data, the layers, the base maps are all packaged, and then they can take it offline. And the third way is to create a mobile map package using ArcGIS Pro. This is popular for using with viewer type of users because it creates a read-only map. But again, it allows you to package a lot of data in a very small package, and users can take that offline. So the key thing to remember about this is that you need some data prep, and your mobile user needs to make sure that they get that offline area onto their device before they actually disconnect.
That's really interesting. I didn't know there were sort of 3 strategies to be able to set this up. So I'm really glad you went through those. Yeah, choices. Yay, love that.
Choices are good.
Okay, so I would admit I'm a really dumb guy. Big surprise, I know. So I really don't understand how the data synchronization works when you're between offline and online. So how does it work behind the scenes within ArcGIS Field Maps?
Well, we provide some tools right in Field Maps mobile app that are only available when you are working with a downloaded offline map. So if a mobile user was out in the field and doing their edits, they could click these sync tools at any time they have connectivity. And what that would do is take the edits on their device, which essentially you're working with a mobile geodatabase, a SQLite geodatabase, and you're saving locally. So you click sync, that will push up your edits to your feature layer, and that will be refreshed. There's options to auto sync. You turn it on in your field map settings. So on a regular interval, if your device detects a connection, field map will automatically sync. But the user actually gets information. You can see when you've done your last sync. You can see if there's any outstanding syncs in your map. So it keeps things up to date regularly, or you can sync anytime. And typically what would happen is when the mobile worker, maybe once a day, if they have a connection, when they're done all their work, they would hit that sync button, sync up all their edits. You could remove that offline area when you no longer need it, or you can download a new one when it's available to make sure you're working with the most up-to-date version.
So it seems like it's not too difficult to actually get your edits back into ArcGIS Online if you are working offline or into your portal. But how do you actually collect and edit data when you're offline in Field Maps? Is the process any different from how you normally would work?
No, it's actually not. You're working with the same set of tools you work with when you're connected. The editing experience uses the same smart forms that you author in Field Maps Designer for attribute editing, and anything such as, arcade expressions or conditional visibility. All that logic will work offline as well. So it's great. So you really won't notice any difference editing other than you are working in a smaller area. So you won't have the whole web map to pan and zoom around. You'll be restricted to that area that you clipped out. And that's really the only difference. Also, the location sharing capability, which I've used offline in my camping experience, that also works offline because that doesn't require Wi-Fi or cellular. It only requires a GPS connection, and you can use it on your device or a connected GNSS. And that will also work in the same way. It stores the location tracks on your device while you're offline, and it will do a sync when you're able to connect again.
Wow, that really makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad you made that very clear. So we really appreciate that. But of course, you're a GeoGeek, and we always love to ask about the road ahead with our GeoGeek. So what are some future developments or enhancements that users can expect to see in the offline capabilities of ArcGIS Field Maps?
Well, we're releasing field maps about 4 times a year, so they're always adding something new to enhance this offline capability. Some of the more recent ones they've added were more offline checks, which we're looking to add even more because we're trying to help people figure out why something won't go offline. There's usually a very valid reason, and it's some kind of either a field, you don't have the right type of field. Some of the ones that are coming are like missing a global ID field or a subtype field. If you have duplicate layers, that is being checked. And I know in the October release, they are adding the ability to enforce that users have to, for a particular map, work with an offline version. And I know that's been a user request that I think they want to make sure always offline workflows are always supported, which is pretty good advice. And I also know in a future release, we're adding support for working offline with the utility network for viewing that network and for doing tracing, which right now only works online. So those are some upcoming enhancements we can look forward to.
Thanks, Sue. Exciting updates as always. And I know that the utility network's customers are going to be pretty excited about that. For those who are new to working offline, particularly in the future, those utility clients who haven't been able to work offline previously, is there anything that they should know, organizations should know, and users before implementing this workflow? Any advice you could give them?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that my advice would be if there's any chance your mobile users are going to go offline, if you doubt that your connection will be reliable or they'll lose connectivity, I think you should plan for those offline workflows. As I explained, you do need to plan ahead and enable offline options at the very least, or do those pre-planned offline areas or mobile map packages. So once you do that, it may seem a little intimidating, but there's lots of online resources. The help is really good. There's blogs and videos. There's actually a detailed instruction guide, a PDF called Take Your Web Maps Offline. So I think just thinking ahead and preparing and taking advantage of all the resources we provide will get people to where they need to be able to go offline in the field.
Absolutely. I completely agree. It's always good to be prepared. And I know you're always prepared. I look forward to seeing your tracks from when you come back from your backpacking. You always have your field maps with you.
Yes, I will be using that for sure. And it helped me canoe in a very straight line, I tell you.
Nice. Good to
No
see
getting
those
lost
are
for
working.
me.
Yeah, no more getting lost. I'm going to have to start using those apps myself. Thanks so much for sharing with us today, Sue. It's been great as always, and we can't wait to have you back again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That was our mobile GIS queen, Sue Agneti. She is a product specialist for mobile solutions at Esri Canada, and she joins us today right around the corner from me in the great city of Hamilton.
Yes.
And during the break, I'll be filling up my bathtub full of ice because another bruising battle of M versus M is next.
Everybody have fun tonight. Everybody wang chung tonight. Oh, sure. Because it's M versus M time.
I love putting random words up just to hear those words from Maggie. It's great. All right, it is indeed M versus M time. And of course, the rules are very simple. Maggie, if you get the following 3 questions, or you get 3 questions right, you will be ascended to the top of the Eiffel Tower in glory. And if you get 3 wrong first, well, you're going to have to be forced to swim in the Seine River. So it's...
I'm feeling like there's a trend here. What kind of questions are you asking me today, Mark?
I have Paris on my mind with the Olympics that's wrapping up. But I do have a completely different topic. So
okay.
For today's M versus M, we're going to actually bring back an old favorite. And
good.
that is the GIS dictionary game.
Oh, fun. Okay. I was good at this one last time.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm going to read a definition directly from the Esri support page's GIS dictionary, and you're going to tell me what the word is. Very simple.
You're not going to give me options?
There are no multiple choices, but I will offer you a hint if you really need one. But I don't think you're going to need one. You're a GIS expert. You're going to sail through all of these.
I'm not a wordsmith, though, so we'll see what happens here.
Well, okay, here's the first clue. All of today's words begin with the letter B.
Oh, wow. It's surprising because last time it was A.
I know, it's amazing how I thought up of the next letter. It's incredible how that works out. So I'm going to give you a nice softball to get started. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes.
All right, here's the first one. An area of specified distance or time around one or many features.
Is that a buffer?
It is a buffer. You see,
Yay!
This game is so easy.
You started easy, though, and I was even not sure I was going to get that one. Okay. Let's go.
All right, so there you go, a buffer, of course. Everyone knows what a buffer is in GIS world, so here we go. Number 2, an expression that results in a true or false logical condition.
I'm so glad I went to GIS school. That's a Boolean, yeah?
It is! Ding, 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 ding!
Yay!
A Boolean expression. How fun is that? Did you know that it was named for an English mathematician named George Boole?
I did not, but I could have assumed it was a man's last name. That sounds right.
Sounds right. See, you're already 2 up, so you were in great shape. Let's see if you can get this next one. A large block of data, such as an image, a sound file, or geometry, stored in a database.
I don't know. A large block of data in a database that starts with B. I don't know. A blob?
Should I give that to you? Define what a blob is.
I don't know. I just see it in tables. It says like blob, and I don't know what that means. Don't give it to me.
Don't give it to you? You're
No.
right. It is a blob, but blob is an acronym for binary large object.
Well, now I know. But it is. I did see blob written down on a lot of tables and just moved on with not asking any
I'm
questions.
curious what a blob is. Okay. All right. Just for fun, we'll count that as a strike.
Okay.
Because I want to ask you the next one. All right. Here we go.
All right.
A curved line with a shape that is derived mathematically rather than by a series of connected vertices.
Man, this feels like a lot of statistics questions here.
Think graphics. So in graphic software, this type of curve usually has two endpoints and two handles that can be moved to change the direction and the steepness of the curve.
I have no idea. The only thing I can think of is like a binomial function in math that I think is a curved line. But I'm lost. I have no clue.
Oh, darn it. It's a Bezier curve.
Oh, that word sounds familiar.
That's right.
Nice. I don't think I'm going to win this one. B is not a letter. I think I know many words. I was hoping I'd get like base map or something a little easier. All right.
All right, here we go.
Just give me the last one.
A map representing the depths and contours of water bodies, such as a sea floor, river bottom, or lake bed.
I was hoping you would have this one in here. Is it bathymetry, right?
Damn it! Yeah!
Yay! That was the first B
right.
word I could think of when you said the letter. Nice.
Of all the GIS terms, that was the first one you could think of.
We have a lot of lakes around here. It comes up.
Yes. Well, you have made it to the top. You can bring your bottle of champagne to the top of the Eiffel Tower, a baguette, some cheese. Because it is my turn, once again, to read the outro.
Come on, get it over with, Mark. Let's go.
All right. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Spatial Report. Please check out our website at esri.ca/spatial report to learn more about the topics we covered today. We also post videos of our interview segments on the Esri Canada YouTube channel. And don't forget to subscribe to the monthly Getting Technical newsletter that highlights all the latest news in our technology. This podcast is brought to you by Esri Canada, a technology company that empowers people, organizations, Pepe Le Pew, and other French things by the science of where. Maggie Samson, it's been a pleasure and honor. We'll see you in a few weeks.
Absolutely. See you then.
All right. Until then, happy mapping, everybody.
That was such an amazing episode. Thank you, Mark and Maggie, for letting us include it as a crossover between our two podcasts, but also giving us a lot of insight into Next Generation 911, also some what's new within the ArcGIS world, and of course, that wonderful trivia to end us off. Thank you for doing such a great job. It was great to have you.
Well, thanks for having us. We appreciate you giving us a shout out. This is fun.
Thank you for tuning in on this special crossover episode of Geographical Thinking. If you're eager for more deep dives into the technical world of GIS, make sure to subscribe to the Spatial Report podcast. If you're on Spotify, maybe give them a 5 stars. We always love to see that. And this is where Mark and Maggie will bring you into the fresh insights and stories from the field. So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep thinking geographically.